After Chen she got engaged, I handed in my resignation under the pretense of traveling. He raised an eyebrow and chuckled. Come back when you've had your fun. I greedily memorized the contours of his face, then answered with a soft He didn't know I would never come back. The moment he got engaged, my life was placed on a countdown by the system. At an elite social gathering, Chen she casually draped an arm around my shoulders, introducing me with a calm and serious tone. This is my little sister. She wants to explore the world. I'd appreciate it if you all could look after her. The crystal chandelier above cast pure white light, illuminating the sharp lines of his side profile. As a friend, he had done everything he could, but I was selfish and disgraceful. Chen, she would never know the real reason for my resignation. I had fallen in love with him. When the system brought me into this world, Chen Shi was merely the illegitimate son of the Chen family, unrecognized and cast away from the center of power, managing only their peripheral businesses. I applied to be his secretary. On my first day, he had a cigarette between his lips, his leather shoes propped carelessly on the desk. Find another job, he said lazily. Following me won't get you anywhere. I bent down, picked up the documents he had tossed to the floor, stacked them neatly, and placed them back on his desk. Opportunities are created. Then, I told him, President Chen, one day you're going to be someone remarkable. Chen, she paused, his deep black eyes fixed on me for a long time, silent. After stepping out of the office, I glanced through the frosted glass. He was still leaning back in his chair, staring blankly at the ceiling. His eyes, stark black and white, held a trace of confusion, perhaps even sorrow. That lost and helpless look, tinged with boyish vulnerability, remained in my memory for 10 years, from the moment we met until now. At Chen Shi's engagement banquet, he seated me at the main table, too close to the bride. Her wedding gown brushed past my field of vision, and I could even see the massive diamond ring on her finger, glistening with a subdued elegance. His marriage was a business alliance, devoid of real affection. By placing me at the main table, he was acknowledging my place in his life. Just as he had once told everyone, she's my little sister, please take care of her. In his heart, there would always be a place for me. Just not as love. The system had warned me, if Chen Shi didn't marry me, I would be erased. You should beg him. He will agree. I smiled. Love or not. Just because I spent 10 years by his side doesn't mean he owes me a marriage. I never liked the idea of using companionship as emotional leverage, forcing someone to love me just because I stayed. The system let out a cold sigh. A chilling mechanical voice rang out. Scarlet, glaring numbers flickered before my eyes. I had only 30 days left to live. Using travel as an excuse, I handed in my resignation. Chen, she held my letter, flipping it back and forth. Finally, he pressed his fingers against his brow, voice low. No need to resign. I'll give you time off. Come back when you've had your fun. I hesitated, then nodded slightly. Maybe I looked too pale, so pale that even he noticed something was wrong. His voice softened. You've worked hard these past years. Get some rest. There will always be a place for you in the company. I smiled and answered, okay. He stepped closer, raising a hand to touch my face, and sighed. You've lost weight again. His voice carried a rare gentleness. Take care of yourself. Eat properly, even if you're alone. I murmured a quiet on the train. The system asked, why do you think Chen Shi doesn't like you? He has overstepped boundaries with you many times. It doesn't matter anymore. I covered my mouth, coughed, and wiped the blood from my palm with a tissue. Tilting my head, I gazed out the window, eyes filled with faint starlight. I'm going to Dali, I murmured. They say it's beautiful there, filled with roses. Once, when Chen Shi and I were handling business negotiations, we were rejected by a potential partner. That night, we huddled together under a bridge for warmth, shivering from the cold. His lips were close to mine as he gritted his teeth and said, "Jokey, when I make it big one day, I'll take care of you. You'll have the best of everything. Wherever we go, you'll walk with your head high." The smile on my lips gradually faded. I swallowed the metallic taste in my mouth and suddenly felt a sense of regret. I love roses so much, I thought, but I've never once received a bouquet of red roses. Curled up in my seat, my eyes burned with unshed tears. When I get to Dali, I'll buy myself a whole bucket of roses. The brightest, most extravagant kinds of bright they could lift my spirits at a single glance. I slowly closed my eyes. Upon arriving in Dali, I had barely stepped out of the train station when I spotted a stiff young man in a wrinkled suit holding a sign waiting for me. I hesitated before walking over. He was an assistant to one of Chen Shi's suppliers in Dali. "Mr. Chen specifically instructed us to take good care of you." Chen Shi's business ties with Dali weren't particularly strong. Making such arrangements must have taken considerable effort. I stared at him for a few moments before declining gently. "No need. I'd like to explore alone. Miss Zhou, you don't have to tell Chen Shi." I smiled at him. "Just say I'm doing well, that I'm having a great time, no problems at all." In the final month of my life, I didn't want to be entangled with him anymore. Having spent 2 lifetimes being the obedient one, I figured I might as well taste recklessness before dying. During the day, when the bar was slow, I strolled through the small city with an umbrella in hand and stopped at a photo studio to take a picture for my own obituary. Letting my hair down, I applied some lip gloss and asked the editor to make my skin fairer, my features more delicate. With the corners of my lips gently curved, I gazed ahead, my smile warm and serene. The black and white photo was framed and held against my chest. As I wobbled out of the studio under the photographer's confused gaze, before transmigrating into this world, my death had been an accident oncoming car speeding toward me, taking my life in an instant. Now, knowing the exact day I would die and preparing for it in advance felt strangely surreal. At night, I swayed in the heavy scent of cheap cocktails, twisting my waist to the beat of the music. My arms brushed against strangers, and their hands sometimes brushed against me. I turned my head and flashed them a smile before continuing my reckless indulgence, lost between life and death. For this 1 month, I did everything I had once wanted, but had always been restrained from doing. And now, having done it all, I had grown tired of it. In the end, I simply lay on a rocking chair, gazing at the Kang Mountains and Ear Lake, waiting for death to arrive. "Chen," she called me once. His voice was gentle as he asked how I was doing. Before I could respond, a playful, sweet voice wind in the background. "You're ignoring me, even when you're on the phone." A chill spread through my veins. I could hear his helpless chuckle, his soothing murmurs, and the girl's dissatisfied pout. As warmth returned to my blood, my heartbeat steadied. I smiled. "I'm doing well." "Chen," she hung up in a hurry. I gripped my phone, staring blankly at the green waves in front of me. Before the engagement, Chen she hadn't even known. It had only been half a month. I once heard that when soulmates meet, they fall in love instantly. 3 days to confirm a relationship, a week to be inseparable, tangled in passion. I never believed it before. But now, I had no argument against it. My health was deteriorating rapidly. I could feel my life force slipping away with each passing moment. My blood flowed beneath my skin, yet my entire body was cold to the bone, a piercing chill that seemed to seep into every cell, screaming in agony. 50 meters from the bar stood a stone bridge, lined with vibrant red roses, their fragrance lingering in the soft Dali breeze. Beneath the bridge, a rushing river carried withered petals. This was the place I had chosen to die. I didn't want to die in a hospital, hooked up to tubes, lying alone in a stark white bed, waiting for the inevitable. One day, I received a package from Chen Shi. Inside was a beautifully wrapped box of wedding candies, and a crimson invitation bearing his and his bride's names. Nestled in the purple, gold-embossed box was an assortment of dark chocolate. I wiped the blood from my lips, tore open a packet, and placed a piece into my mouth, letting the lingering taste of iron mix with the bitter richness of chocolate. Bitter, yet smooth. I remembered the first time I worked overtime with Chen. I had low blood sugar, and he had rummaged through his desk drawer, pulling out a handful of brightly wrapped candies. "Eat some," he said. "Your body won't last otherwise." I shook my head and whispered, "I'm on a diet." She's dark eyes lingered on me for a moment before he smirked and muttered, "So troublesome." A few days later, he had a friend bring back some dark chocolate from overseas and pushed the box in front of me. "Keep this with you. It won't make you gain weight. If you're hungry, don't hold out. It's bad for your body." The purple gold-embossed wrapper had gleamed under the light, reflecting his serious and focused expression. That was the most vivid memory I had of him in the past 10 years. For the first time, I felt that I truly existed in this world, that someone cared about me, that I could experience joy, anger, sorrow, and happiness, that I was living as a real person, not just a puppet bound by fate, forced toward an inescapable end. 8 days left. I received a call from Chen's assistant, who was Sheng. He had worked under Chen for 7 years, always polite and respectful in his tone. "Sister Joe, when will you be back? There are some tasks that need to be arranged soon." I grabbed a handful of Dolly's soil and let it scatter in the wind, replying absent-mindedly, "Handle it as if I'm not coming back. Find someone to take my place, Sister Joe." Hua Sheng hesitated, his voice laced with unease. Carefully, he asked, "Are you not planning to return at all?" I told him. "Don't tell Chen just yet." I pressed my lips together. Hua Sheng was my protege, trained by me personally. He had followed Chen for 7 years, just as he had followed me. I wanted him to take care of my affairs after I was gone, but when the words reached my lips, I found myself unable to say them. In the end, I could only sigh. "A week from now, I'll send you an email. Follow the instructions in it." Then, in a gentle voice, I added, "Hua Sheng, do your best in the future. And if you ever get married, don't forget to burn a stack of paper money for me." Realizing my words were inappropriate, I stopped myself in time and gave him an apologetic smile. Instead, I simply said, "Take care, Hua Sheng." Maybe it was because I was nearing the end, but these past few days, I kept dreaming of my past life of my mother. She was beautiful, draped in a cheongsam that hugged her delicate figure, her skin soft and fair, resembling a palace dancer in all her splendor. So different from her final days, when she lay on a hospital bed, reduced to nothing but skin and bones, her body dry and brittle like dead wood. She had spent her entire life loving a man who never truly cared for her. The man she willingly became a mistress for, the man she sacrificed everything for, never appeared at her bedside. No matter how many times she called him, no matter how hoarse her voice became from crying, begging him to see her one last time, all he left her with was a single, chilling sentence. "You deserve to die. You and your daughter both. It's better if you're gone. All you do is bring harm to others." I had been peeling an apple beside her hospital bed when I heard those words. The knife slipped, slicing through my pale fingertip. Blood welled up. I wiped it away expressionlessly. She sobbed hysterically, while I simply watched in silence, finding it all absurd. I went downstairs to buy another apple, but before I could cross the street, the traffic light turned red, and a drunk truck driver slammed his foot on the accelerator without a second thought. Through the shattered windshield, I saw my own body being flung into the air, my face frozen in terror. My last thought before death was of that woman. Now that even I had abandoned her, how would she continue living? 3 days left. Perhaps it was a final burst of energy before death. Wrapping myself in a long shawl, my hair messily tied up, I dabbed on lip gloss and blush before aimlessly wandering the cobblestone streets. I saw a little girl staring longingly at a candy vendor's sugar figurines, tugging at her mother's sleeve. Her mother, looking weary and worn, knelt down and whispered tearfully, "Sweetheart, we need to save money for Daddy's treatment." I stepped forward, bought a pandu-shaped sugar figurine, and placed it in the little girl's hands. She clutched it timidly, her pale face tilting up as she called me "Big Sister." Her mother thanked me profusely. I watched them leave, then turned to head back, only to see the last person I ever wanted to see at this moment, Hua Sheng. When he saw me, Hua Sheng ran over excitedly. "Sister Joe, President Chen is inside. Let me take you in." I cut him off. "Why are you here?" "There's a forum being held here, and President Chen was invited," Hua Sheng explained, then hesitated before asking, "Sister Joe, where are you staying?" "I checked all the lodging records in town, but I couldn't find your name anywhere." Bars weren't considered official lodging, and I had long forgotten whether I had even registered. I pulled my shawl tighter around myself and said slowly, "Hua Sheng, can you not tell anyone that I'm here?" "Not tell who?" A calm voice interrupted me. I fell silent instantly. It was strange just seeing Chen Shi again made my withered organs feel as if they were regaining warmth. Blood, which had been running cold, suddenly carried heat again, pulsing through my veins in sync with my heart. I stood where I was, tilting my head up to look at him quietly. After a month apart, he hadn't changed much. His suit was immaculate, his leather shoes polished to a shine, and his tie knotted neatly at his chest. Still dazzling, still full of vigor. His brows furrowed as he looked at me. "Why have you lost so much weight?" "Haven't been eating properly?" I shook my head. "Maybe it's just the climate here." "You haven't gone to a hospital." "There's no need. I'm fine." He raised his hand, about to touch my head, but I tilted away. His arm paused mid-air before he withdrew it as if nothing had happened, offering a small smile instead. "When do you plan to come back?" "In a couple of days." I lowered my head. "I really like it here. I want to stay a little longer." He nodded slightly. "That's good. You should relax." Something seemed to cross his mind, and a gentle light flickered in his eyes. "When you get back, your sister-in-law and I will treat you to a meal." The streets of Dali carried the fragrance of flowers in the air. I easily picked out the scent of roses. I loved roses because that woman loved them. At her most radiant, she would twist her waist gracefully and tuck a bright red rose behind her ear. And because of that year, when Chen Shi had just returned to the Chen family, amid the silent stares of those who resented but didn't dare speak against him, he had reached out and snapped off a corolla red rose from his eldest sister's prized flower pot. Leaning against the table, he had smiled at me and beckoned, "Joe, come here." Then, he had tucked the rose behind my ear, bold and direct, displaying his favor for me in front of the entire Chen family. At that moment, I had dared to fantasize. Perhaps I could really marry him and stay by his side forever. I tightened my shawl around myself and asked softly, "And you? How long will you be staying?" 3 days? He reached out, brushing his palm against my forehead. Despite my attempts to dodge, feeling the coldness there, his brows knitted together. "Are you sure you're fine? Why are you so cold?" Chen Shi studied me for a moment, his voice deepening. "When we get back to the capital, I'll arrange a full checkup for you." I didn't refuse. Chen Shi stepped forward and effortlessly lifted me into his arms, placing me onto a stone block to sit, rest for a bit. "Then take me around town. How about that? Show me your favorite place in Dali." Just as my muddled brain was about to think of an excuse to leave, his warm, teasing words interrupted my thoughts, pulling me back into torment. Panicking, I pushed him away, pulling my shawl tighter around me as I stood there. My pale, almost translucent skin was bathed in the sunlight. "Chen Shi, do you realize you're married? We shouldn't be like this anymore." Chen Shi paused for a moment before straightening, his expression neutral. "Whether I'm married or not, Joe, you will always be the most important person to me." always. An eternally important person. One without the ties of blood or the bond of marriage. In an adult's world, those words should never coexist. I looked up at him, tall, refined, still wearing that small, teasing smile, and suddenly, I didn't feel like playing dumb anymore. So, I asked him, Chen-shi, do you know that I like you? Chen-shi knew. Of course, he knew. I was never a good actor. I couldn't hide my emotions, couldn't mask the overwhelming love I felt for him. It had always been there, plain as day, in every gesture, every glance. In the words I never finished speaking, and in the words I held back entirely. He had always known. He just never responded. His hand clenched into a fist. His mouth opened slightly, but he didn't say a word. I looked at him and spoke softly. Since you know, Chen-shi, please don't appear in front of me again. Give me time. Let me rest. Let me forget my feelings for you. Can you do that? Chen-shi left. The empty street was filled only with the scent of roses and the distant chatter of children. A metallic taste rose in my throat, and the familiar temps of blood flooded my senses. Gradually, I regained awareness of my limbs and veins, my existence. I had lied to Chen-shi. I never wanted to forget him. My love for him was the only thing that made me feel alive in this foreign world. It was what tethered my soul, what reminded me I was still human. Not just a creature crafted from code, existing only to fulfill a predetermined mission. Once the taste of blood faded, I leaned against the wall for support and slowly made my way back to the bar. 2 days left. At dawn, I crouched in a field of roses. A hand patted my head. It was the bar owner's son. Innocent and straightforward, his skin was tanned from the sun, and when he smiled, his teeth gleamed bright white. He was at that pure, ambiguous age, didn't want to leave him with any psychological scars. Dropping the trowel, I stood up with some effort and took a few steps back, expressionless. What is it? He hesitated, then extended his arm, revealing a steaming bun. I saw you up early, and you haven't had breakfast yet. I bought this for you. Thank you, I said with a smile. But I don't need it. At least eat a little. Not eating isn't good for your body. I have someone I really like, I interrupted. I won't ever like anyone else in this lifetime. Bending down, I plucked a rose. Stay away from me. It'll be better for both of us. He fled quickly, his eyes filled with heartbreak. The bun lay abandoned on the ground, its warmth slowly dissipating into the scent of roses. I picked it up, stared at it for a moment, then tossed it into the trash. Wrapped in my coat, I returned to the bar. The moment I stepped inside, I felt that something was off. The usual clatter of dishes and glasses was gone. The boss lady's booming voice was absent. Everyone was quiet, sneaking fearful glances at the bar counter, where a man was playing with a glass of blue cocktail. Chen-shi. Beside him, Hua Sheng looked tense. I froze for a moment before walking over, confusion in my voice. Why are you here? Chen-shi looked up at me and smiled. Zhou Hua Sheng said, You don't plan on coming back. His voice was gentle, but for some reason, it sent a shiver down my spine. The silence around us was suffocating. I pulled my coat closer. Let's talk in my room, I said. Not here. The small, shabby room was lined with damp moss on the walls, the air thick with decay and the scent of something withering. She sat on the single bed, glancing around before curling his lips into a faint smirk. If you're not going back, do you plan on living here? I handed him a disposable cup of water. It's fine. It's livable. She scoffed but said nothing. His attitude, however, was clear. He seemed agitated, his usual composure and gentlemanly demeanor nowhere to be found. He didn't even bother to hide the impatience and distaste in his tone. Taking a deep breath, he asked me seriously, Why won't you go back? I don't want to. I cradled the paper cup in my hands. I've worked for so many years. I just want to take a break and relax. I can give you time off. She's voice tightened with restrained anger. Zhou, the Chen family empire, We built it together. You can't just walk away." His words were sincere, his gaze earnest. He was genuinely trying to convince me to stay, but I only felt exhausted. Did he really need to tear down my last shred of dignity before he was satisfied? I looked up at him. "Chen-Shi, do you want me to stay and watch you and your wife live happily ever after?" I didn't. I cut him off. "Let me tell you, I can't do that. And your wife won't allow me to stay by your side either. Let me go, Chen-Shi. It's better for both of us. Let me die in peace. Let me inhale the thick, intoxicating scent of flowers as I end this unwelcome existence of mine." Chen-Shi fell silent. After a long pause, he straightened his back and reached out, gently brushing my hair. His voice held a trace of helplessness. "Joe, you are the most important person in my life. As long as you ask, I will give you anything. 10 years? How many 10 years does one get in a lifetime? Are you really willing to throw away everything we've been through?" How noble his words sounded, as if I were the one being cruel and heartless, while he lowered himself to a pitiful position, begging for my sympathy. No wonder he had single-handedly defeated 3 corporate giants at a bidding meeting with just his words, rising to fame overnight. I tilted my head back, my gaze following the sharp line of his jaw, up to his chiseled profile, and finally landing on those deep, water-laced eyes. He was looking at me, eyes filled with tender emotion. I found it ridiculous. Leaning closer, I enunciated each word clearly. "Chen-Shi, do you really not understand what it means if I go back? What it means if I stay by your side? You know perfectly well I love you. You also know that as your secretary of 10 years, my position becomes unbearably awkward the moment you get married. And yet, you pretend not to see, not to hear, acting as if you don't understand. Instead, you blame me for being heartless." A thought absurd, yet undeniably crept into my mind. He knows everything. He's just playing dumb. He doesn't want to give up the benefits of his arranged marriage, but he also doesn't want to lose my gentle, devoted companionship. He's waiting for me to break my own moral compass, to throw away my self-respect, to crawl at his feet and surrender. I stared into his eyes and whispered, "Chen-Shi, if you want me to stay forever, in what capacity would that be? A sister with no blood relation? A secretary closer than a wife? Or," I smiled, "your hidden mistress?" Chen-Shi's face turned deathly pale in an instant. For the first time, panic flickered through his usually impassive eyes. He really had thought of it that way. He wasn't as noble as I once believed. A laugh escaped my lips. Gathering all my strength, I raised my hand and slapped him across the face. His head tilted from the force, his expression momentarily blank, as if he were truly innocent. A bitter metallic taste welled up in my throat. Blood surged up, thick with nausea and despair. Wiping the corner of my mouth, I fixed my gaze on him, my voice icy. "Chen-Shi, you want everything. That's disgusting." Chen-Shi lowered his head, silent for a long time. After what felt like an eternity, he finally spoke, his voice soft. "I'm sorry. I never meant for you to be my mistress. But I can't deny it, when I thought about keeping you by my side forever, that idea did cross my mind. I apologize for my despicable thoughts." His voice trembled slightly. "But Joe, my desire to keep you with me is real. You are the most important person in my life. You always will be." I closed my eyes and let out a hollow laugh. "Chen-Shi, do you really think that no matter what you do, I will never leave you? That I will always follow you, asking for nothing in return, like a loyal shadow?" When he agreed to this marriage, he never imagined I would actually leave. He knew I would be sad, but he probably thought I'd just cry in secret. Then he would comfort me, and nothing would change. Because I had always been unwavering, he thought he never had to care. How ridiculous. Chen-Shi said nothing, only responding in a quiet voice. "In these 10 years, I've been betrayed countless times. They all used me as a stepping stone, then left to pledge loyalty to someone else. But you were the only one who never left me. Before my engagement, I never realized that this marriage would make you want to leave. Joe, if breaking off the engagement means you'll stay, I can do that anytime. It was only when he saw I was truly leaving that he scrambled to salvage the situation, carefully observing my expression, calculating the most effective words to say, applying his negotiation skills. Just like always, raised in an orphanage, having never learned fundamental morals, he still couldn't understand. Why was it that a marriage without love, just a legally binding red certificate, was enough to make me walk away forever? I curled my lips into a cold smirk. Chen, she suddenly reached out and grabbed my wrist. Ignoring my struggle, he pushed up my sleeve, revealing the scar on my elbow. The once raw wound had faded into a thin, pale line. His fingertips brushed over it gently. "Joe," he murmured, "from where I stand, I have countless ways to keep you. Threats, imprisonment, even coercion. You have too many people you care about, too many things that matter to you. I only need to seize one of them, and you will never escape me. But I won't do that." His fingers lingered on the scar, his expression soft. "The day you took that knife from me, I swore I would never let anyone hurt you again, not even myself." His dark eyes locked onto mine, his voice gentle but unwavering. "So, Joe, let me ask you one last time. Will you come with me?" I stared at him, my gaze tracing from his lips to his nose, and finally to his expectant eyes. Chen-Shi's eyes were beautiful, always slightly upturned at the corners, perpetually glistening, brimming with charm that could make people fall. The first time I saw him, I was drawn to his eyes, and then I fell into an abyss. But now I understood. Chen-Shi ruthless. I leaned in, my words deliberate. "I won't." That night, the storm raged. A thug grabbed my hair, forcing me underwater. My consciousness blurred, a thin veil of mist covering my vision. Pain and despair seeped into my bones, dragging me toward death. Then, I saw the glint of a cold blade. Without hesitation, I struggled and lunged forward, taking the knife meant for Chen-Shi. The wail of police sirens filled the air. We survived. When I woke up in the hospital, Chen-Shi was holding me tightly in his arms. His tears seeped into my clothes, ran past my collarbone, cold as ice. From that day on, he changed. He no longer played nice, no longer left room for mercy. His methods became ruthless and cruel, sending shivers down people's spines. He transformed into a businessman who lived for nothing but profit. When he announced his engagement, he had told me, "The Zhang family has deep roots abroad. I need their power to climb higher." Back then, I had asked him, "So even marriage is just another tool for profit?" Chen-Shi had laughed, ruffling my hair. "Why not? Why not?" Faced with a man who had been utterly corroded by power and wealth, I found myself unable to argue. My naive ideals were nothing more than childish make-believe. In his eyes so immature, they weren't even worth refuting. Chen-Shi imprisoned me. For bodyguards took turns guarding my door, forbidding me from leaving. Every time I stepped toward the entrance, I saw their tense yet reverent expressions. "If we let you leave, we'll lose our jobs. Miss Joe, please have mercy on us." Hearing burly men plead like that was jarringly absurd, but it worked. It stopped me in my tracks. Chen-Shi was right, I had too many weaknesses. Any one of them could be used to shackle me, ensuring I could never escape. Unable to leave, I could only talk to the system. It was baffled. "It's come to this. Why not just marry him? If you say the word, there's no way he'll let you die." I smiled. The taste of blood, something I had long grown used to, flooded my mouth. I swallowed it down without expression, dabbing at my lips with a tissue out of habit. Then, I spoke softly. If I wanted to get married, why wait until now? Even if I had told Chen-Shi from the start, he never would have let me die. He would have used every trick in the book, exhausted every possible means to make me stay. He would have given me the grandest, most unforgettable wedding, showcasing his deep affection before the world. He would have done anything spared, no cost, to keep me alive. From the very beginning, I was never truly incapable of living. The truth is, I never wanted to live. The system fell silent, the hum of static crackling for a long time before it finally asked, confused, why? I said, "Do you know why, Chen? She is so sure that I will never leave him, because of this stupid mission. I came to this world for him. For 10 years, everything in my life has revolved around him. If I leave him, I die. So I have no choice but to stay, like the most loyal dog at his heels." But that's the mission requirement. Yes, that was the mission requirement. The price of my survival. I changed the topic, asking it, "Do you think these captured missions have any real meaning? We gave you another chance at life in exchange for the data we wanted. That's fair." Yes. Survival is an instinct ingrained in all living things. The mission gave me a chance to survive. I was supposed to be grateful. Then why, living through it, did I feel nothing but suffocation? For 10 years, I revolved around Chen Shi. No freedom, no autonomy. Every action dictated not by my own will, but by his existence. His name became the nightmare that haunted my life. Chen, she said, people came and went in his world, but I was the only one who never left him. But do you know, Chen Shi? I thought about leaving. I thought about betraying you. I thought about using you as a stepping stone, climbing toward a better, higher place. But that was all it could ever be, just a thought. Because this life was never mine to begin with. I had no choices except to follow you. I despise this existence. Rather than spending the rest of my life without dignity, without freedom, without choice, I'd rather choose death. A long silence passed before the system whispered, "But no matter what, living is the most important thing. As long as you're alive, there's always hope." I know. I chuckled softly. That's why, at first, I hoped Chen Shi would choose to marry me on his own. I hoped I could mean more to him than just a business calculation. I hoped that his love for me would be enough to make me surrender to this pathetic fate. But in the end, I was disappointed. Even in this lonely world, I still never received a love that was truly pure. I'm tired. I don't want to keep suppressing myself, pretending to follow this ridiculous destiny. Honestly, death would be a relief. I woke up late. Dressed properly, I picked up a hoe and walked to the rose field by the bridge. The bodyguards tried to stop me. So, right in front of them, I called Chen Shi. His voice was warm. "Have you thought it through? Chen Shi, come find me. I'll be waiting at the stone bridge outside the bar," I said softly. "I have something to tell you." Chen Shi was silent for a moment. Then he answered, "Okay." There was a trace of excitement in his voice, but at this point, I could barely lift the hoe anymore. Dragging it behind me, I took slow, labored steps down the stairs. The bar owner's son saw me struggling and took the hoe from my hands. "Where are you going?" "I'll take you there." I thanked him. Chen Shi's engagement banquet was at noon. So was my death. Sunlight scattered over the bridge, golden and dazzling, glinting off the handrails. The young man handed me the hoe, his expression full of concern. "Are you really okay?" I shook my head, forcing a pale smile. "Thank you." The pain was unbearable, so much so that I nearly collapsed against the bridge pillar, sweat trickling down my forehead in beads. My vision blurred. I bit my lip, tasting a mixture of my own blood and the iron-tinged warmth rising from my throat. My body was ice. I stayed still for a long time before finally forcing myself upright. Wiping the sweat from my forehead and the blood from my lips, I steadied myself. Using the hoe, I loosened the soil around the roses. Then, I crouched down and pressed a soft kiss to the thorned stem. In the corner of my vision, at the other end of the stone bridge, Chen Shi appeared. Chen Shi strode toward me quickly. "Why is your face so pale? Haven't you been resting well?" He steadied me, his eyes filled with unmistakable worry and urgency, as if I truly were the treasure he cherished in the palm of his hand. I let go of the hoe, letting it drop to the ground with a dull thud. The bright red countdown that hour column had already gone blank. My life had begun ticking away, second by second. Leaning against Chen-Shi's body for support, I stared at that seemingly righteous, dignified face of his, and suddenly I laughed. No one knew better than I did what kind of cold, ruthless heart lay beneath that beautiful exterior. Softly, I spoke. Chen-Shi, do you know? These past 2 days, I've been regretting ever getting close to you. You are selfish, despicable, shameless. Every bit of kindness given to you, you turn into a bargaining chip, a tool to be used. Chen-Shi froze. What did you just say? Straightening up, I lifted my chin slightly against the breeze, looking him in the eye. I said you are shameless, vile, and utterly rotten inside, no matter how high you climb. If I had another chance, I would never meet you again. Never. The mask of composure on his face cracked. His entire expression contorted into something hideous. He grabbed my shoulders and shook me. Ki, you've always known what kind of person I am. I am selfish. I am cold. I am ruthless. But I have never used those methods against you. If I hadn't been ruthless, I wouldn't have survived this long. Ki, you of all people should understand that. Why are you condemning me? Why are you leaving me too? The corners of his eyes turned red, and he clung to me desperately, pressing his chin against my shoulder. Tears slipped down, soaking into my clothes, just like that day, years ago, when I had shielded him from the blade. We've been through so much together, Joe. Why are you denying everything between us? You are so important to me, so important that I would do anything for you. Why must you be so cruel to me? Cruel, Chen-Shi. They don't tear flesh. They don't break bone. How could it compare to the agony I've endured under fate's relentless torment? I had nowhere else to direct my hatred toward the system, toward my meaningless existence, so I took it out on you. After all, you are not innocent either. My voice suddenly softened. Patting his shoulder lightly, I asked, Chen-Shi, then, will you marry me? His body stiffened perhaps. In that instant, he was weighing the pros and cons. I smiled slightly, cutting off his thoughts before he could respond. No need to answer me right away. Take your time. Swallowing the blood rising in my throat, I glanced at the bottom right corner of my vision. The numbers were approaching 0. Let me be alone for now, Chen-Shi. Go back. Think it over carefully. Make all your arrangements before you come find me. I will always be here waiting for you. Always. The word slipped past my lips, laced with the taste of blood. It echoed against the flashing red numbers in my eyes. I gave Chen-Shi a fragile, fleeting dream, one he could cradle in his hands, cherishing it like a treasure, until the day that dream shattered. Chen-Shi left. His clothes were disheveled, his neck and shoulders still speckled with the blood I had coughed up. He was too flustered to even notice. He would marry me. His feelings for me were real. He just needed to think, to weigh the pros and cons, to calculate the gains and losses. But I didn't need love that had to be weighed. Leaning against the bridge pillar, blood seeped from my lips, trickling down my neck, soaking into my clothes. Chen-Shi's expression would be quite something when he found out I had died, wouldn't it? He would break down. He would cry. He would grieve. He would regret leaving. Regret hesitating for just that moment. And that regret would last his entire life. This wasn't revenge. I didn't hate Chen-Shi. I simply hoped wickedly, selfishly, that no matter how many lovers he found after me, no matter how many times he moved on, he would never erase me from his heart, even if it was regret, even if it was hatred, even if, in the dead of night, a wry smile curled at my lips. I thought of my mother, the woman who shamelessly inserted herself into another person's marriage. In the end, I was no different from her. Staggering, I stepped onto the edge of the bridge. The river beneath surged violently, the wind carrying the scent of roses. I loved red roses the most. If no one gifted them to me, that was fine. I could buy them myself, keep them by my bedside, fall asleep to their fragrance. Fate tried to strip me of my dignity, tying my worth entirely to Chen Shi. I couldn't change that. But it didn't matter. I could choose to stand here, to die as a human, not live as a dog. The countdown had only 10 seconds left. I spread my arms wide, bathed in the scorching sun and the crisp wind, facing the rushing river, the swirling sand. I smiled and jumped. Let me have one last dream, one I will never wake from. A dream where I am free, passionate, walking openly beneath the sun. No longer for anyone else, only for myself. To learn, to read, to love, to debate, to compete, to see the world, to sing whatever song I wanted to sing. No system, no mission, no strategies. No life that could be erased at the snap of someone else's fingers. A life where I would live fiercely for myself alone. Epigraph. The scene outside was a chaotic mess. Police swarmed the area. I stood on the outskirts of the crowd, listening to the murmurs, brows furrowing as I turned to Hua Sheng. What did they say? Who died? Hua Sheng's face went deathly pale. He dropped to his knees, hands covering his eyes, his fingers trembling as fat tears spilled through the cracks. I stared at him in confusion. Why was he crying? Who died? Zhou Qi. Impossible. She couldn't be dead. She just couldn't. Like a madman, I shoved past the barricade, running toward the bloated, waterlogged body fished out of the river. The white sheet was lifted, a face swollen, pale, grotesquely deformed by the river, yet terrifyingly familiar. I stumbled back a few steps, collapsing onto the muddy ground. My palms scraped against jagged rocks, splitting open, blood seeping out. But I didn't care. Muttering numbly, I said, "She was always a little chubby. Now she just looks worse. Wake up, will you? I won't mind. I won't mind, okay?" I had lost all sense of self, crawling toward her, my trembling fingers brushing against her cold, lifeless face. Uncontrollable tears streamed down my cheeks. I cradled her head against my chest and howled at the sky. That day was chaotic. I cried like a child, gasping until I nearly passed out, my mind ringing endlessly. Eventually, I collapsed onto her body and blacked out. When I woke up in the hospital, the first thing that left my lips was her name, Zhou Qi. Then I saw the delicate hand passing me a glass of water. My heart loosened. Taking deep breaths, I told her, "I just had a dream. I dreamt that you died." Isn't that ridiculous? The hand holding the cup froze. Hua Sheng stood at the foot of my bed, his lips slightly parted, as if he wanted to say something, but didn't dare to. Something felt wrong. I turned my head. Zhang Yan, There was no Zhou Qi in the hospital room. Crash. The glass slipped from my hand, shattering on the ground, its shards stabbing straight into my heart, drawing fresh blood. Zhang Yan spoke softly, apologetically. "Secretary Zhou, she took her own life." "Chen Shi, don't be too sad." "Sad?" I laughed. "No, I'm not sad." Biting down on my already bleeding lip, I trembled as I spat out my words. "I won't be sad for her. Suicide." "Zhou Qi, was this your way of getting back at me?" "Well, let me tell you." Swallowing down the taste of blood, I forced my emotions into check and ordered Hua Sheng, "The engagement continues. We leave for the capital now." "But, sir?" "No buts." I glared at her, my voice venomous. "Right now. Immediately. I want to leave this godforsaken place." "Zhou Qi, you told me to marry you. You whispered forever. And then, in the next breath, what was this your way of making me regret it? A final revenge against me? Laughable. You're dead, and I will still stand at the top, basking in luxury. With a single wave of my hand, there will always be women willing to throw themselves at me. Women prettier than you, with bigger eyes, sharper noses, softer smiles. Thin, curvy, gentle, seductive, could have anything. And you could only rot in the dirt, your flesh devoured by worms. You're the one who should regret this. You're the one who should be punished. Fury churned inside me. I raised my hand and swept everything off my desk. The succulent plant Joe Key had bought, the black fountain pen she loved, the vase she had carefully arranged. Everything lay in shambles. I slumped into my office chair, pressing my palm over my eyes, shielding the tears that threatened to fall. Joe Key, you can't punish me. I won't regret this. I never will. I erased her from my life. I forbade Hua Sheng, Zhang Yan, and anyone else from mentioning her name. For a time, it really felt as though she had disappeared. Everything remained orderly. The new secretary was diligent and responsible. Her coffee was better, and she could even make beautiful latte art. Hua Sheng spoke less, but he still did his job well. The engagement proceeded. The venue and host had been arranged. The Zhang family had even invited celebrities, ensuring their reputation remained intact. Everything was normal. Everything was smooth. Standing before the floor-to-ceiling windows, I flicked my cigarette against the glass, muttering to my own reflection. Without you, my life is just as good. My career is unaffected, still thriving. You see, you're the one who should regret this. The glass reflected my exhausted face. The room was empty, just me, all alone. My eyes burned red. I thought that if no one spoke her name, I could slowly forget her. That, as long as I erased every trace of her existence, forgetting would be easy. Until the day Zhang Yan asked me to accompany her to pick out a wedding dress. I had nothing better to do, so I went. She stepped out of the dressing room. I glanced at her casually, my eyes sweeping from her high heels, up the curve-hugging mermaid gown, to the tiara atop her neatly styled bun. Something felt off. The legs should be longer. The waist should be thinner. She should have a bit more softness in her cheeks. Her eyes should tilt up slightly at the corners, and the lip color wrong. She always preferred deep rose, even dragged me along once to help her pick. I froze. Who was I thinking of? Breathing suddenly felt heavy. Without a word, I turned on my heel and left, ignoring Zhang Yan's calls behind me. Sitting in my car, gripping the steering wheel, I closed my eyes, forcing my heartbeat to steady. Just this morning, I had thought, I must be forgetting her. So why does she haunt me like a ghost, slipping into every crack in my mind? Frustration surged. I slammed my foot on the gas, speeding along the winding mountain roads, rolling the windows down until the wind roared in, icy against my sweat-damp forehead. Whenever I was at my lowest, she used to accompany me here to drive. Even though she'd gripped the seatbelt so tightly her knuckles went white, she still pretended to be calm. She once told me, "Everything will pass. You have to keep moving forward. Yes, everything will pass, even forgetting you." I stopped the car at the mountaintop and crouched down, plucking a morning glory flower. Turning back, I habitually reached behind me. Why do you always like these fragile little flowers? There was no one behind me. I froze. The wind stopped. Even the river below the cliff seemed frozen in place. A chill seeped into my bones. I blamed my emotions on the setting. The day after my wedding, I left the country with my assistant. The Zhang family bombarded me with calls, and out of irritation, I finally answered Zhang Yan's. "I don't care about your bullshit. Stop bothering me." She fell silent. I scoffed. In this industry, how many people are actually clean? Work kept me busy expanding into new markets, working late nights. Even my assistant lost 10 pounds until he finally collapsed and asked for leave. Looking at his pale, exhausted face, I damn it thought of her again. Those early years weren't easy. She worked harder than me, pulling all-nighters, complaining about hair loss. "Go," I said. "Get some rest." Outside the window, the city lights were dazzling. She had always loved floor-to-ceiling windows, said they made a place feel open, freeing. So no matter where I went, I always designed my office this way. Paris was humid, the air always carried a trace of moisture. And the moment I smelled it, I thought of how she hated damp air, how she always carried dehumidifier packets. She had never even been to Paris. Yet standing here, everywhere I looked, her laughter, her voice, the way she'd tug my sleeve, begging for ice cream. I bought the most expensive one, reaching back instinctively to hand it to her. But she was gone. Like every trace of her was just a lingering ghost in my mind. The ice cream had melted, sticky against my fingers. I stared at it for a long moment before lowering my head, licking it absent-mindedly. Sweet. But you never ate sweets when you were dieting, did you? It's too sweet. How could you even eat this? Wake up and tell me, won't you? Wake up, and I'll invest in sugar-free milk tea, sugar-free yogurt. Hell, I'll build a whole factory for sugar-free products just for you. Just wake up. Tears pricked at my nose. I didn't bother wiping them away. I suddenly felt tired. I had tried so hard to erase her, to prove she was just another woman, her death meaningless to me. But who would believe that? Who was Shang, Zhongyan, even the business partners who never dared mention her? Their eyes were all filled with pity. Pity. I had climbed to the top, only to be pitied by others. How laughable. I crouched down, clutching my chest. It was empty inside, so hollow it made me ache. Tears streamed down my face, pooling at the corners of my lips, trickling into my throat, bitter sinking deep into my heart. When I lifted my head, I saw her, Jo Ki, wrapped in her familiar shawl, standing before me. She gazed at me for a moment before reaching out her pale, slender hand. I felt wronged, stubbornly refusing to take it. I just kept staring at her, hoping she would coax me, speak to me. But she withdrew her hand, shook her head. Her voice was gentle yet so cold. Chen, no one will stand still and wait for you forever. Her figure vanished in an instant. I lunged forward, only to crash onto the marble floor. My forehead split open on impact, my glasses cracked, the world spinning around me. Yet I still reached out, blindly searching. I crashed into a lamppost, scraped against sharp stones, tumbled into a flower bed crawling with insects, until finally I knelt on the ground, head tilted back, letting blood and tears mix together, despair sinking into the cracks of my lips. They all told me that time heals everything, and I believed them. That night in Paris, I made Jo Ki a forbidden name, one no one dared to speak. I threw myself into work. When I was busy enough, maybe the pain wouldn't reach me. I climbed higher and higher, for 10 years, reaching a place where there was nowhere left to go. Standing in my office at the very top, below me were riches, power, endless flattery and admiration. 10 years. I thought that if I saw her again, I could face her with indifference. See, even without you, I'm doing fine. I got married. My career is thriving. She stood there, in a simple white dress, quietly watching me. Then she walked forward and tugged on my tie. I crumbled in an instant. Years of experience told me that emotions, joy, anger, desire, obsession must always be restrained, never exposed. Yet, when I held her, I couldn't stop the tears. They poured down, unchecked. My arms tightened around her, as if I could crush her into my chest, stuff her into my pocket, never letting her leave again. I regretted it. I truly, deeply regretted it. She had told me over and over again that some things in this world were far more important than profit. But I had ignored her. I had refused to believe her. I had been arrogant, blinded by my own power. And I had driven her to her death. She should hate me. She should resent me. She should despise me, wish to grind my bones to dust. I would accept it, as long as it made her feel better. But I had spent so much money making offerings to the gods. Could I shamelessly beg for just one thing in return? A next life. A life with her in it. I lived a dull, meaningless existence for years before finally wandering to Dolly. Standing by the stone bridge where she had jumped, I fell into a daze. She was afraid of the cold. So what kind of resolve did she have to summon to leap into that icy river? She was afraid of pain. Did she curl up? Did she try to scream? Did she choke on the water as it filled her lungs? I climbed over the railing. Looking down, I saw the rushing currents, the swirling white foam carrying rose petals downstream, the jagged rocks beneath, and in my mind I saw her again. Her eyes gently closed, lips curved in a faint smile, her arms stretched wide, and then she fell. I stepped forward. For a moment, weightlessness struck me, dizziness washing over my senses. 10 years. I had lived alone in this world for 10 years. Time hadn't faded my feelings. If anything, it had made every memory of her even sharper. Every laugh, every glance, every movement etched permanently in my mind. For 10 years, every time I jolted awake in the dead of night, every time nightmares swallowed me while I curled up, holding her photo, murmuring stories of the past. Jokey had once told me, no one is indispensable. People move on. Back then, I nodded and agreed. But now, I wanted to tell her, that's not true. Without you, I really can't go on. So, in the next life, please, let me find you again. Let me love you properly. Can we?